Okay folks, I am Mike the Photo Gamer and welcome to something a little bit different. Yes, I have been out on the water testing my new kayak. I got into kayaking about 18 months ago and I've been using an inflatable, but I have now finally purchased a proper rigid kayak. So I thought I'd take it out for a bit of a spin at the end of lockdown. Lockdown's now easing, so it's made life a little bit easier for us. So I took it out for a spin, and this is a bit of a test video, to be honest with you. I've got plans to make a really proper series out on the water, out on the kayak, but I decided just to give this a bit of a test the camera mount, make sure everything works. And I wasn't originally going to post this, but I thought, why not? Let's get it out there and let you guys see what I get up to when I'm not sitting at a computer. So I am out on the Trent Mersey Canal near Stone in Staffordshire, which is where I live. So not far from where I live, I can drop straight onto the canal and we can go paddling. So I'm heading out of the town centre here, past some fairly angry swans, heading away from the town. First one's in proper aggressive mode, the second one actually hissed at me because they have the 4 cygnets. I feed them every day as well, those cygnets, when they're further up the other end towards the town centre, and they're still hissing at me. Anyway, so I am out on my kayak. It is a Riot Edge 11. We'll go over a little bit more about the kayak a little bit later in this video, but this is just a bit of a tour, really, just to show you where I go, and also to test out the camera for a bit more of an exploring series that I've got planned a little bit later on, over probably the next couple of years. In all honesty, it's quite a grand venture I've got planned. But you can see paddling away, cameras mounted on the front bulkhead of the kayak. This is a closed cockpit kayak, not a sit on top. So I have an actual cockpit that I'm sitting inside. So my feet are sort of just in front of where the camera is. And I've clamped the camera onto a mount using one of my big photography stand clamps. As you can see, we're passing some oncoming traffic on the right hand side. Plenty of canal boats out there. Actually, you won't see many in this video. I saw most of them on the way back. Unfortunately, my SD card in my camera didn't last long enough for that. So I've mounted the camera on a bracket. It's clamped to the front of the cockpit, and it's actually pretty solid. You can see how rigid it is. You can see the paddles paddling away. And for anyone wondering, the difference between a kayak and a canoe is always an open boat. It's not enclosed at all. You sit in it rather than sitting on it, but it is always open topped, and you'll have a single-ended paddle if you have a canoe, whereas a kayak has a double-ended paddle, and you can either have one that you're sitting in with a closed cockpit, or one that you're sitting on top of, where you're basically sitting in a recessed moulding in the top of the kayak. That's a sit on top. This is a proper touring kayak. So behind me, that you can't see in this video, is a big storage compartment where I can take things with me, and all those bungee cords you can see are where I can strap things onto the deck. I did clout the camera a few times with the paddles. It is sort of in the way, but it's not too bad. Okay, so we're passing some more boats. We're actually coming up to the first of the major obstacles that I always have to go round whenever I am out in the kayak. It's worth mentioning this is the first time I'd brought this kayak in this direction. So it's the first time I've had to haul this kayak past this lock. So this is Aston Lock. And kayaks and paddlecraft, you can't take them through locks. You have to the force of the water coming from the gates in the lock is a little bit too strong and it would swamp you, so you can't take these through locks. You have to take them out of the water and carry them around, and that's where there's a little bit of entertainment here. I've got a set of wheels for this kayak, so you're going to see me jump out of the water in a moment and lift the kayak out. I've got a set of wheels for this kayak, and there we go, lifting the kayak out of the water. I have a set of wheels for this kayak, but could I get these wheels to attach to the bottom of the kayak? No, I could not. When I tested this in the back garden before I set off, they just dropped underneath. You just dragged the kayak on top of them, and everything was all good, and you strap the kayak on, and away you went. But trying to do that, as I discovered when the kayak's been in the water and the bottom of it is wet, was next to impossible. The wheels just kept sliding out. They kept rolling away. So they've rolled off to the back here. I'm trying to drag the kayak on. They've disappeared. And then you'll see them shortly, as I take my second attempt at doing this. You'll see them very shortly flying out the front of the kayak. As there they go. They're rolling very easily on the compact ground. I'm having to go and retrieve them. When I tried this in the garden, they didn't move at all. They just rigidly stayed there. But unfortunately, this slightly smoother ground proved a little bit too difficult. So in the end, I did give up. I'm not going to lie, and I did take the wheels out, and I just carried the kayak around. But I did figure this out a bit later on. Put the trolley on without the wheels. The wheels detach. It's a foldable trolley. Take the wheels off. And put the kayak on without the wheels, and then pop the wheels on once the trolley is strapped to the kayak. So that's what I did when I came back the other way. You can see I'm getting in everybody's way here, trying every which way to get these wheels attached to the kayak. In the end, what I did when I came back the other way, I strapped the trolley onto the bottom of the kayak without the wheels attached, and then I lifted the wheels on afterwards, and that worked a lot better. So that's what I'm going to do next time. But you live and learn from these things. As you can see, a boat coming through the lock there. So that's coming up from the lower level up to this slightly higher level. And actually, I took so long trying to get these wheels attached to the kayak that canal boat had actually completely come through the lock from being at the bottom all the way up to the top and sailing out the other side before I managed to get the wheels attached. That's how long it took me. So at this point, what I'm actually doing, I'm stowing the wheels. I've given up. I'm strapping the wheels back onto the back of the kayak. You can't see that in this video, unfortunately. But I'm strapping the wheels back onto the back of the kayak at this point so that we can get ready. There's the paddle, and we're going to lift the kayak up and take it and carry it round because it just was not happening. It was going to take too long. So very shortly, here we go. So we're just going to carry it around. The reason I don't just do this is that it is quite a heavy kayak. It's 23 kilograms, which is not too bad right now when I've only been paddling for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes to get to this point. But once you've done 3 or 4 hours and you're coming back the other way, it's quite a heavy thing to carry. You can see how far we've got to carry it around. And I just dragged it along on its keel, which is not a great thing to do. That's why you fit the wheels to it. So I just dragged it around the lock. It's actually quite a distance that you have to travel. It's a good sort of 40 odd meters that you have to travel to get around a lock. And then we're just lowering back into the water on the other side. So there we are. That's the only lock on my normal route, my normal leisure route. That's the only lock I have to go around. So there you go. There's a bit of fun and entertainment. If you do go kayaking on the canals, that is a rule to remember. Do not take your kayak through a lock. I know it's been very popular recently at the end of the lockdown. I had a real job. I've only just bought this kayak and I had a right job getting hold of one. Stock levels have been quite low. Loads and loads of people have taken it up, which is great. But if you are out on the water, you've never been out there before, there are a few rules you've got to bear with, and one of those is go around the locks like that. Okay, so we're back on the water again. Paddling away. So we're heading out of the town into the country. So it's all countryside from this point on. As we paddle away from the town centre, we're actually heading out of Stone town centre towards Stafford. Although, to get to Stafford via the canal is actually, you have to take quite a long route that sort of doglegs off quite a long way in the wrong direction and comes back on itself. And you actually have to move onto a different canal, so it's a long way to get from Stone to Stafford. But we're vaguely heading in that direction right now. And we're passing the entrance to Aston Marina. Aston Marina is a very large marina. There's a big wharf facility there for storing narrowboats. There's dozens and dozens of narrowboats just off to the left. And lots of narrowboats coming in and out. This is the entrance. It's a one-way system, so boats come in here and come out a little bit further down. It's quite a big marina. It's one of the biggest in the area that I can think of. And there's lots of facilities there, and there's a big restaurant there that's open to the public, and it's actually quite a nice place to go. But when you're paddling past on the canal, you just have to be careful for boats coming in and out, particularly here at the exit, which is a few hundred meters further up the canal. Boats can appear coming out of here, and because of the layout of it, it can be a bit difficult for them to see you in a kayak. You're much lower to the water and much smaller, so sometimes they can miss you, so you need to make sure you're watching out for them. It's not their fault, it's just the way it's laid out. And yeah, so we're passing Aston Marina exit and heading out into the open countryside. So from here on in, until we get to the village of Sandon, which unfortunately we don't reach in this video, I'll explain that in a minute, it's pretty much open countryside. Very few people that you're going to come across. The towpath is on the right hand side. You get a lot of walkers and runners down there. And we will see a few moored narrowboats. So we're going through a little narrow section. Canals are not very deep. They're only a few feet deep in the middle. They're much shallower at the edges. You do get some sections that are quite narrow. You just have to be careful of oncoming boats when you hit one of these narrow sections, particularly the bridges. I tend to always give way to oncoming traffic because it's just easier. It's easier for me to stop and maneuver over to the side than it is for a narrowboat to stop. So, generally speaking, even though technically I've got the same rights of way, I am a boat after all, on a kayak. I do have the same rights of way. It's easier for me to give way, even when technically I shouldn't have to. But you don't get that much traffic on a canal, so it's not generally a problem. You can see one issue, we've got some splashes of water on the camera lens. It is in a waterproof housing. It is an action cam. The camera I'm using is a bow power 4K action cam, so it's a GoPro knockoff. So much cheaper than a GoPro, but the video quality is not actually that bad. This was quite a dull day, to be fair. It wasn't exactly a sunny day. It was quite overcast about a week or so ago. As we're coming up to another overbridge. This is a livestock overbridge. So this is used by cattle and sheep to get across from the fields on one side to the fields on the other. So you can't, pedestrians don't use this bridge. This is purely for the farmer. It is wide enough for driving a tractor across. You don't often see them, but you do sometimes see them. So it's bridge number 89. And as we go underneath, we've got quite a long, straight section coming up. So nice, gentle paddling. It's actually quite funny. You can get up to a higher speed on one of these kayaks than a narrowboat, so you quite often catch them up. If you've got a narrowboat in front of you in one of these things, you will actually catch it up. Less so in the inflatable, but in one of these you really do. And talking about the kayak, it is a Riot Edge 11. And it is 11 feet long, hence the Edge 11. There's an Edge 12 and an Edge 13. It's a closed cockpit tourer, as I've already said. It's got a single rear storage compartment at the back that you can store quite a bit in, actually. It's quite large. It's got all the desk ties and the bungees, so you can hold everything on that you might need to take with you on a longer journey. It has a retractable skeg. A skeg is like a fixed rudder. It's like a blade that fits at the back of the kayak that helps it track in a straight line. I find that I do use it. It does help keep things going in a straight line. The kayak does pull slightly to one side without it. The seat's pretty good as well. It's nice and adjustable. Kayaks don't really have proper seat. You don't sit in it as such. It more just adds a bit of extra support. But it's a pretty comfortable kayak for long distance touring. So if you are looking at getting any kind of a serious kayak, this is not a bad one, actually. It's the smallest in the range. A lot of the others are much bigger than this. And unfortunately, this is pretty much as far as we get in this test video, because I only put a 16 gig memory card in the camera, and because I was recording in 4K resolution, that memory card filled up pretty quickly. So I actually started doing some audio tests at this point, just to see if the camera could hear me talking, and I'm not going to lie, it can't. So I need to figure out how I'm going to do that with a separate microphone. But I was happily, merrily chatting away to myself, thinking it was recording, and it was only a bit further down that I realised it had actually stopped and the card was actually full. So I need to put a bigger memory card in it next time. But not a bad little camera, not a bad kayak, a nice little trip out, nice little test run for a much bigger series which I'm planning to do with this kayak. I've been planning it for quite some time. Obviously the coronavirus lockdown has kind of scuppered my plans for this year. The canals were closed for the whole of that lockdown. They've only just started to ease now, so I haven't been able to get out on the water through most of the spring and the early summer, but I am getting out there now. But hopefully next year I'll be able to make this video series that I've been planning to do, venturing around the UK's canals on the kayak. That's the plan. And this is the first part of the test for that. But I'm going to start wrapping up. So thank you very much for joining me for something a bit different. I am going to start putting a lot more variants on the channel. You're going to see a lot more videos that are not gaming related. I'm going to turn this into my more kind of general hobbyist channel. So you're going to see a lot more different stuff on here, coming soon. But right now, I'm going to say thank you, as always, for joining me. And until next time, take care wherever you are in the world. And I shall see you again very, very soon.